The arena lights burned bright, illuminating the sea of roaring fans, their chants merging into a thunderous wave of excitement. The world had witnessed countless legendary bouts, but this was something different. A collision of two titans, two men who had dominated their respective realms in ways few could ever dream of. On one side, the most feared man to ever step inside a boxing ring, a fighter whose mere name sent shivers down the spines of his opponents, Mike Tyson. And on the other, a modern-day gladiator, a powerhouse who had ruled the squared circle with an iron grip, Roman Reigns. This wasn't just about victory. It was about legacy. It was about proving who truly stood as the most dominant force in combat sports. For years, fans had debated this fantasy matchup. Boxing purists swore that Tyson's ferocity, his head movement, and his devastating power would be too much for any wrestler, no matter how dominant. But wrestling fans fired back, arguing that Roman Reigns was not just any wrestler, he was a powerhouse with unmatched strength, endurance, and a strategic mind honed in countless brutal battles. And now, in an unprecedented event, those arguments would finally be put to rest. The world wouldn't have to imagine anymore. They were about to witness it firsthand. As the fighters prepared, the tension in the air was suffocating. Tyson, even at his age, carried an aura of danger. His past opponents had described it as standing in front of a caged animal, one that could explode at any second. He didn't just fight, he dismantled. His fists, honed by years of war inside the ring, had the power to end a man's night in a heartbeat. And across from him stood a warrior of a different breed. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, a man whose presence alone commanded respect. His strength was legendary, his resilience undeniable. He had walked through steel chairs, survived punishing battles, and crushed those who dared to challenge his reign. But this was different. This was no scripted battle. This was real. The question wasn't just who would win, it was how. Could Roman endure the relentless onslaught of Tyson's punches? Could he absorb the kind of damage that had sent world-class fighters crumbling to the canvas? Or would his sheer size, power, and conditioning allow him to wear down the former heavyweight champion, smothering him in a fight that went beyond boxing's rulebook? Everyone had an opinion, but no one truly knew. And that was the terrifying part. As the crowd's anticipation reached a fever pitch, the fighters made their way to the ring. Tyson's walk was slow, methodical, his eyes locked forward like a predator zeroing in on its prey. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary movement, just a silent, overwhelming intensity that spoke volumes. Roman, on the other hand, carried himself with the confidence of a king marching into battle, his head held high, his expression unreadable. The weight of his legacy, of everything he had built, rested on his shoulders. Losing was not an option. When they finally stood face to face in the center of the ring, the energy in the arena shifted. The chants quieted just slightly, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The referee gave the final instructions, but neither man truly heard them. They were locked in, staring into each other's eyes, each searching for any hint of weakness. And then the bell rang. In an instant, Tyson exploded forward, his signature peekaboo stance in full effect, head slipping from side to side as he closed the distance with frightening speed. Roman braced, his massive frame tense, ready to counter, ready to show that this was his domain. The world was watching. The debate was over. Now there was only the fight. Tyson lunged forward, his fists coiled like springs, ready to unload the kind of devastation that had shattered champions. The first jab was a blur, snapping out with a speed that defied expectation. Roman shifted just in time, absorbing the impact across his forearm instead of his chin. But even through the block, the force was undeniable. Tyson wasn't here to play. He was here to break the man in front of him. Roman didn't retreat. Instead, he planted his feet, throwing a stiff forearm to Tyson's shoulder, trying to disrupt his rhythm. It was a calculated risk. Giving Tyson space meant inviting his deadly combinations, but meeting him head-on meant stepping into the fire. Another punch flew, a sharp left hook aimed at the ribs, and this time, Roman felt the full brunt of it. A flash of pain rippled through his core, but he gritted his teeth, refusing to give Tyson the satisfaction of a reaction. The crowd erupted, some roaring for Tyson to finish it, others screaming for Roman to take control. Every second was a battle of will, of endurance. Roman's game plan was clear: outlast the storm, make Tyson burn through his explosiveness, then counter with overwhelming force. But Tyson wasn't following any script. He came in low, bobbing under Roman's reach before launching a right uppercut that barely missed its target. The air between them crackled with danger. Then, just when it seemed like Tyson was pressing the advantage, Roman did the unthinkable. Instead of backing up, instead of countering with a strike of his own, he grappled. His arms locked around Tyson's torso in a crushing clinch, his strength undeniable. The crowd gasped. This wasn't a move from the world of boxing. This was the instinct of a wrestler, a fighter who had spent years bending rules and redefining combat in his own image. Tyson thrashed, trying to pry himself free, but Roman held firm, using his weight to force him backward. The referee rushed in, warning against excessive holding, but in that brief struggle, something changed. Tyson wasn't just fighting an opponent anymore. He was fighting an entirely different beast. He had prepared for a boxing match, but this was becoming something else entirely. A flicker of realization passed through Tyson's eyes, and then, just as quickly, it was gone. He twisted his frame with an unnatural quickness, slipping out of Roman's grip just enough to bring his fist crashing into his side again. The impact forced Roman to release, staggering him a step back. Tyson seized the moment, unleashing a rapid combination that forced Roman to cover up, but the damage had been done. Roman had planted a seed of doubt. The fight was shifting. The rules were blurring. And in that moment, as both men locked eyes once more, the question wasn't just about who was stronger or faster, it was about who could adapt. And that was when the real war began. Tyson rolled his shoulders, his breathing heavy, but his eyes still locked with unwavering intensity. Roman adjusted his stance, his ribs throbbing from the relentless punishment, but his confidence hadn't wavered. The strategy was clear now. He couldn't just absorb the storm. He had to change the tempo, force Tyson into unfamiliar territory. And he did exactly that. As Tyson stepped in to throw another hook, Roman surged forward, driving his shoulder into the smaller man's chest with a controlled explosion of power. It wasn't a clean strike, but it wasn't meant to be. It was a disruption, a calculated break in Tyson's rhythm. The former heavyweight champion stumbled back just slightly, but that fraction of a second was all Roman needed. He unleashed a brutal right hand, not as fast as Tyson's, but fueled by raw power. The impact was unmistakable. Tyson's head snapped to the side, sweat flying from his brow as his knees dipped for the first time. The crowd's reaction was instant. A mix of shock, exhilaration, and disbelief rippled through the arena. Roman had landed. Hard. And Tyson, the man who had walked through some of the most devastating punches in boxing history, felt it. But there was no retreat, no hesitation. If anything, Tyson's expression darkened, his body coiling like a predator preparing to strike. And then he unleashed hell. His gloves became a blur, slipping past Roman's defenses, smashing into his body, his ribs, his arms, anything within reach. Each punch carried the kind of force that could shatter a career, and Roman felt every bit of it. But instead of folding, he did something no one expected. He started walking forward. The punches didn't stop coming, but neither did he. It was as if Roman had made peace with the pain, channeling it into something deeper. He took another blow to the midsection, but instead of doubling over, he surged in again, this time slamming an elbow into Tyson's guard. The move was subtle, enough to keep it legal, but just enough to shake Tyson's balance. And that's when Roman went for the finish. Summoning every last ounce of energy, he launched a monstrous uppercut that caught Tyson clean under the chin. The world seemed to freeze. Tyson's head snapped back, his body stiffening for a split second before gravity took over. He hit the canvas with a force that silenced even his most die-hard supporters. The referee rushed in. The count began. Tyson's fingers twitched, his mind willing his body to rise, but the damage had been done. 8, 9, 10. The fight was over. Roman Reigns had done what few thought possible. He had taken on one of the most feared fighters in history and won. But it wasn't just about the victory. It was about proving that strength wasn't just in power or speed. It was in endurance, in adapting, in refusing to break, even when everything screamed for you to quit. As Roman raised his fist in triumph, Tyson finally sat up, a grin creeping onto his bruised face. He nodded, a silent acknowledgement between warriors. There was no shame in defeat, only respect for the man who had earned it. The world had come expecting a fight. What they got was a battle for the ages,